The world around me fractures. One blink, and I'm no longer standing in the present. A gust of air, sharp, biting, colder than anything I have ever felt, slams against my skin. My breath catches in my throat, condensing instantly into a ghostly white cloud that hangs in front of my face. I stumble forward. Snow crunches beneath my boots, but not the soft, playful snow of winter holidays. This is dense, ancient snow packed hard, layers upon layers, frozen for centuries. It squeaks under my weight, the sound oddly sharp in the stillness. I lift my head. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue, the kind of sky that feels endless, yet empty. But it's the horizon that steals my breath. Towering walls of ice rise in the distant glaciers, their jagged edges glowing faintly in the dim sunlight. They stretch as far as the eye can see, shimmering like frozen fortresses guarding the land. The air burns my lungs. Every breath feels like I'm inhaling shards of glass. My fingers, even through gloves, begin to sting with a numb ache. The wind howls low and mournful, slipping through cracks in the ice and whistling across the barren plain. I take a few hesitant steps. My footprints trail behind me, quickly dusted over by fine snow carried by the relentless breeze. The ground isn't flat. It dips and swells like a frozen ocean, shaped by centuries of advancing and retreating glaciers. Somewhere far off, a crack echoes like thunder, the sound of ice breaking. A glacier shifts perhaps, sending vibrations through the frozen ground. The earth here feels alive, but not in the way modern landscapes do. This is raw, primeval power. I pull my coat tighter and try to steady my thoughts. Where am I? When am I? The realization hits I'm standing in the middle of the last ice age. Roughly 20,000 years in the past, during the height of the last glacial maximum. The world is colder, harsher, and infinitely more dangerous than the one I left behind. The first thing I notice beyond the cold is the silence. No cars. No distant hum of electricity, no voices, just the wind, the occasional groan of shifting ice, and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. But silence doesn't mean emptiness. As I scan the horizon, I begin to pick out shapes in the distance, vast herds moving slowly across the tundra. My pulse quickens. They're massive, far larger than any creature I've seen before. At first they seem like boulders, but then one lifts its head, a long curved tusk glinting in the light. Woolly mammoths. I freeze, half in awe, half in fear. The creatures march in a slow, deliberate line, their shaggy coats swaying with every step, breath steaming from their trunks. Calves, protected by their towering mothers, shuffle close to the herd. Their size is staggering, living tanks of fur and bone, perfectly adapted to this frozen world. The wind shifts, carrying their musky scent and the distant rumble of their low calls. The sound vibrates in my chest, deep and ancient. I feel small, almost insignificant, standing in their presence. I take a cautious step closer, my boots crunching too loudly in the silence. One mammoth raises its head, ears flapping, trunk curling. For a moment, I'm certain it has seen me. My heart leaps into my throat. But then it huffs, turns, and trudges after the herd, unconcerned by the strange figure in its world. The reality of this place sinks in. I am no longer the top of the food chain. Here, survival is a delicate balance. As if to prove the point, a new sound cuts through the air, a low, distant howl. My blood runs cold, not from the wind this time, but from instinct, wolves. I turn toward the sound. A small pack silhouettes itself against the pale horizon, moving low and fast across the snow. Their bodies are lean but powerful, fur thick against the cold, eyes glinting with hunger. They're not close, not yet, but close enough for me to know I'm being watched. Adrenaline floods me. My every sense sharpens. I glance around, nothing but open tundra and the distant safety of a ridge of ice. My hands tremble, not just from the cold, but from the ancient primal fear thrumming through my veins. The Ice Age is no museum exhibit. It's alive, and I've just stepped into its unforgiving jaws. I force myself to breathe, to calm my racing thoughts. This is just the beginning. If I want to survive, I'll have to understand this world, its rules, and its dangers. Every step forward is a gamble, but it's also an adventure. I take another breath, bracing against the wind, and step deeper into the Ice Age. The cold is no longer just something I feel on my skin. It seeps into me, curling around my bones, settling deep inside my chest. Each breath is an effort. The air is thinner than what I'm used to, sharper, harsher. When I exhale, my breath lingers in the frigid air, curling upward like smoke. It's a strange comfort, a sign that I'm still alive in a land that doesn't want me here. The wind never stops. It gusts across the tundra in long, sweeping currents, carrying with it shards of ice that sting my face like pinpricks. It howls against my ears, a constant reminder that this is no gentle winter. This is a world locked in the grip of an endless freeze. I close my eyes for a moment, listening. The sound is vast. Not the noise of civilization, but the noise of an atmosphere in motion, a living, breathing force. It whistles across the ridges of glaciers, tumbles through valleys carved by ice, and slips across plains where nothing grows taller than a patch of hardy grass. The sun hangs low on the horizon, pale and weak. It offers little warmth, more a distant lantern than the life-giving star I know in my own time. Even at midday, shadows stretch long across the land, as though the world is caught in perpetual twilight. I raise my hand to shield my eyes. The light glitters off ice crystals suspended in the air, tiny flecks that sparkle like diamonds before the wind carries them away. For a brief moment, the entire world seems to shimmer, as if frozen in glass. But the beauty is deceiving. Every instinct in me screams that this is hostile ground. Without shelter, without fire, without food. Survival here is measured not in days, but in hours. I press onward. My boots sink into the snow, sometimes firm, sometimes soft, always unpredictable. The land here is uneven, shaped by centuries of glacial advance. Ridges of ice rear up like frozen waves. Valleys scoop low where rivers once flowed before freezing solid. I imagine the map of the world. I know Europe, Asia, North America, and realize how different it must look now. Sea levels are far lower, locked away in these vast ice sheets. Land bridges connect continents that in my own time are separated by water. Siberia to Alaska, Britain to mainland Europe. The world is wider, yet harsher. As I crest a rise, the wind slams into me, nearly knocking me back. I grit my teeth and push forward, squinting into the blast. Far below, the land stretches out in a vast plain, coated in patchy snow and hardy vegetation. It's not lifeless. Against all odds, grass and shrubs cling to existence here, adapted to survive in soil that freezes more often than it thaws. I crouch and brush my glove against a cluster of frozen grass blades. They crackle under my touch, brittle yet stubbornly rooted. These plants are the backbone of this world. They feed the mammoths, the bison, the reindeer. They keep the wolves alive, the predators strong. Even here, life endures fragile but persistent. The air smells different, clean, sharp, untainted. There is no smoke of cities, no trace of fuel or machinery, only the faint, earthy musk of animals carried on the wind, mingled with the metallic scent of ice. It's pure, almost overwhelming in its clarity. But purity doesn't mean safety. My cheeks burn with cold, and when I touch them, I can already feel the raw sting of frostbite beginning its slow creep. I remember that without proper shelter, a human body can only withstand this kind of exposure for so long. Even layered in furs, early humans must have lived in constant battle against the elements. A sudden gust clears the haze of ice crystals, and for the first time I see the aurora faintly shimmering in the sky above, even though it's not night. Green curtains ripple and twist across the pale backdrop, ghostly and silent. It's both beautiful and eerie, a reminder that the Earth's magnetic field is alive, dancing in ways that people of this age must have seen with awe and fear. I imagine them small bands of humans huddled in caves or crude shelters, staring upward at the glowing sky, telling stories to explain what it meant. Spirits? Gods? Messages from beyond. To them, it must have been magic. To me, it's science and wonder combined. The longer I stay still, the more I realize how the cold shapes everything. My movements are slower, heavier. My fingers stiffen even inside my gloves. My breath rasps, leaving ice crystals along the edge of my scarf. The world doesn't just challenge me, it crushes me with its indifference. There is no mercy here. And yet, it's breathtaking. The raw, untouched vastness of it all. The knowledge that I am walking a land that has since vanished, swallowed by melting glaciers, reshaped into the modern world. Here time feels thick, layered like the ice beneath my feet. In the distance, a crack resounds again, a glacier calving, splitting apart. The sound echoes like a gunshot, deep and resonant, followed by the groaning rumble of ancient ice shifting. I shiver not just from the cold, but from the reminder that even these titanic walls are not permanent. The Ice Age is powerful, but it too will end. Snow begins to fall. Not the heavy, wet flakes of modern winters, but fine powder, dry and relentless. It coats my shoulders, dusts my hair, fills the air until the world around me is a blur of white. Visibility shrinks, the horizon fades, the mammoths, the wolves all vanish into the storm. I stand alone in the blizzard, the sound of the wind screaming around me. My heartbeat quickens, panic threatens, the snow thickens, and I realize how easy it would be to get lost, to wander in circles until exhaustion sets in. This is the reality of the Ice Age climate, not just cold, but unpredictable, merciless. One storm can mean the difference between survival and death. I dig my boots into the snow, force myself to move forward, each step slow and deliberate. The world is closing in around me, but I cannot stop. Somewhere there must be shelter. Somewhere warmth waits. The storm howls louder and I lower my head, pressing on. This is only the beginning of my journey. The snowstorm gradually eases, leaving the world eerily quiet once more. I lift my head, letting my eyes scan the frozen horizon. The land stretches endlessly in every direction, a living testament to the Ice Age's relentless grip. It is both alien and breathtaking. Every ridge, every dip, every glittering glacier tells a story of immense geological power. I step carefully onto a ridge of compacted snow, peering down into the valley below. Rivers that should be flowing with water are frozen solid, glinting like silver ribbons across the plain. Their surfaces are cracked and uneven like shattered mirrors. reflecting the pale sunlight in jagged patterns. In some places, the ice bulges upward, trapped pressure forming curious ridges and crests, proof that even in stillness, the land is moving, alive in a slow, patient rhythm that I can barely comprehend. The ice sheets themselves dominate the northern horizon, colossal walls of frozen water that stretch beyond what my eyes can follow. They rise in jagged fortresses, cliffs of shimmering blue that occasionally crumble, sending icy avalanches crashing downward with a thunderous roar. The sound vibrates through my boots and my chest. I feel like a tiny intruder in a cathedral of ice, humbled by the scale of it all. But not all is frozen. Between the glaciers lie pockets of open land tundra, scattered with resilient shrubs and tough, wiry grasses that have somehow endured the cold. It is these narrow lifelines that support everything. The woolly mammoths grazing on sparse patches, herds of reindeer, and the occasional predator stalking from cover. The tundra seems fragile, almost delicate compared to the imposing glaciers. Yet it is the stage upon which survival plays out. I descend carefully into one such tundra valley, boots crunching on the icy crust. The land here is flatter, giving me a sense of the vast expanse. My breath steams in the frigid air, mingling with the faint odor of animal musk carried by the wind. The open plains stretch for miles, broken only by the occasional rocky outcrop, jagged stones protruding from the snow like teeth. These outcrops might have been refuges for animals seeking shelter or lookouts for predators. And I imagine the stories they hold in their frozen silence. Looking closer, I notice the subtle undulations in the landscape. The earth isn't smooth. It rises and falls in low hills and ridges formed by the immense glaciers pressing and retreating over millennia. Glacial moraines, mounds of stone and soil, dragged along by moving ice crisscross the tundra, leaving scars that will persist long after the ice melts. It's as if the land itself remembers the slow advance and retreat of the glaciers, carved and molded by forces beyond comprehension. I pause to take it all in. The contrast is striking. On one side, towering glaciers dominate, impenetrable and harsh. On the other, open steppe and tundra, delicate, fragile, yet teeming with life, even if hidden beneath layers of snow. Somewhere in the distance, I catch sight of a frozen river delta, a web of ice and snow that once carried water from the mountains to the sea. The sea itself must be much farther away than I imagine, its levels lower now, locked in the grip of glacial ice. I can almost picture the land bridges connecting continents, paths now submerged in modern oceans, but crucial for migration and survival during this frozen age. The wind shifts again, cutting across the valley, and I press my coat tighter. Even in these open expanses, the landscape is not empty. Shadows move in the distance, distant herds, small figures that hint at predators or prey, both surviving in this stark, frozen world. Every ridge, every hollow, every mound of ice could conceal life. The world is deceptive in its stillness. Survival here requires constant vigilance, even for creatures far better adapted than I am. I wander along a gently sloping hill, the snow crunching underfoot, and suddenly I see a depression in the ice. A small ice-free patch, perhaps heated by geothermal activity or sheltered from the worst of the wind, has become a haven. Tiny plants poke through the frozen ground, hardy grasses and mosses that cling stubbornly to existence. I kneel, brushing my gloved hand over them. They are brittle and dry, yet impossibly resilient. Life persists, no matter how hostile the conditions. Above, the sky begins to cloud over again. The pale light of the sun dims, turning the glaciers a deeper blue and casting long, shadowed lines across the plains. I feel dwarfed by the scale of the land, a speck on a stage that has existed for thousands of years. These landscapes will outlast me, outlast even the Ice Age itself. Millennia from now, humans will look back at the valleys and ridges and know that they were shaped by forces unimaginable in my own time. I glance at a distant peak where ice and stone merge in jagged beauty. Avalanches tumble silently, sheets of ice collapsing into themselves, sending plumes of powder snow drifting down. In that moment, I understand the Ice Age is not static. It is alive, ever shaping, ever moving. The land breathes slowly, with patience and power that I can barely perceive. Continuing across the tundra, I notice that even in these open, frozen expanses, life leaves traces. Footprints of large creatures pressed into snow, broken branches, tufts of fur caught on jagged stones. The landscape tells a story for those who know how to read it, where animals feed, where predators hunt, where survival is waged quietly every day. It is a land written in snow and ice, etched in every ridge and depression. As I climb another gentle rise, I take in a panorama that steals my breath. The glaciers in the north, the steppes stretching endlessly below, frozen rivers snaking like silver veins. The interplay of ice and land, of snow and stone, creates a mosaic unlike anything in the modern world. Here, geography is raw, alive, and uncompromising. Every feature has meaning. Every ridge, every hollow is part of a system of survival, of life struggling against the cold. I stop, letting the wind batter my face, letting my eyes drink in the frozen vista. In this moment, I am not merely a traveler. I am a witness. The Ice Age is vast beyond imagining, dangerous beyond belief, yet exquisite in its beauty. It is a land that commands respect, a reminder of nature's scale, power, and indifference. Here, amidst glaciers, tundra, and frozen rivers, I feel the world in its purest, most elemental form. I press onward across the tundra, my boots crunching the snow beneath me, ears straining for the faintest hint of movement. The land is vast, but life is never far away. At first, I see only shadows against the white, distant shapes that move with purpose, their slow, deliberate motion making me question whether my eyes are playing tricks on me. Then, a low rumble vibrates through the ground. My heart stutters. I freeze, scanning the horizon. There they are, woolly mammoths, enormous as I had imagined, but far more imposing in reality. Their shaggy coats ripple in the pale wind, each stride sending tufts of snow swirling into the air. Calves stick close to the giants, tiny in comparison, but still larger than any animal I've ever encountered. Their trunks swing methodically, snatching handfuls of frozen grass and tossing it into their mouths. I crouch behind a ridge, barely daring to breathe. The mammoth's trumpeting calls echo across the tundra, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates in my chest. There is majesty here, but also danger. These creatures are living fortresses of fur and muscle, capable of turning a predator or an unwary human into nothing more than a memory. As I continue my trek, I notice other signs of life. Tracks in the snow, some enormous, some delicate, the prints of reindeer, wild horses, perhaps even bison. The ground is a map of survival, a frozen diary etched in snow and ice. Every paw print, every hoof mark tells a story of hunger, pursuit, and survival in this unforgiving land. Suddenly, I catch a flash of movement near a distant ridge. A saber-toothed cat slinks along the shadowed slope, muscles rippling beneath its thick fur. Its elongated canine teeth glint even in the dim light, deadly precision hiding behind an almost regal calm. I hold my breath, heart thundering. The predator pauses, sniffing the air, ears twitching, then disappears as silently as it appeared. A shiver runs down my spine. It is a reminder that I am not at the top of the food chain here. The tundra is alive with sound. The distant howl of wolves pierces the cold air, a haunting echo that seems to travel for miles. Somewhere closer, smaller creatures scurry across the frozen ground. Arctic hares, voles, birds adapted to the frost. Their movements are quick, almost frantic, darting between patches of shelter that I cannot always see. Predators lurk everywhere, hidden among ridges and rocks, waiting for a moment of weakness. And then I see a group of woolly rhinoceroses trudging across the plain. Their massive forms resemble tanks, armored in thick fur, with horns that could impale anything foolish enough to challenge them. I freeze again, mesmerized. The cold does not seem to touch them, nor do the winds that pierce my bones. These animals are sculptures of survival, perfectly designed for this frozen world. Everywhere I look, the Ice Age displays its creatures in stark contrast. Predators and prey, giants and tiny scuttlers, all bound by the same relentless rules of existence. I can hear the distant cracking of ice glaciers shifting, perhaps alerting the animals to danger. Mammoths pause mid-step, ears flicking, trunks lifted. Wolves vanish into the shadows. Saber-toothed cats melt into the ridgelines. The land itself seems to pulse with life and vigilance. Every movement calculated, every decision a matter of survival. I move cautiously, keeping my distance, yet cannot help but feel an almost spiritual awe. I am witnessing an ancient dance, a world unchanged for millennia. The creatures around me are not merely surviving, they are thriving, each perfectly adapted to the icy tundra, each a product of forces that I can barely comprehend. A sudden gust carries the musk of the mammoths directly to me. My stomach lurches. The scent is overpowering, a mix of earth, fur, and something primal that sets every nerve on edge. I close my eyes briefly, inhaling the essence of a world long gone. For a moment I feel connected, not as a human, but as a participant in the story of life itself, standing at the intersection of predator and prey, observer and participant. The day stretches on. I continue to spot animals, cave lions stalking silently, giant ground sloths moving with lumbering grace, mastodons drifting across the plains like slow-moving islands of fur and bone. Birds circle overhead, adapted to the cold, their calls sharp and clear in the crisp air. Even the smallest creatures, lemmings, Arctic foxes, leave marks in the snow, a reminder that every life counts in this frozen ecosystem. As the sun dips toward the horizon, shadows stretch long, and the tundra takes on an almost mystical hue. The creatures slow their movements, preparing for the encroaching darkness. Mammoths huddle, rhinoceroses settle into small depressions, wolves retreat to hidden dens. I realize that survival in the Ice Age is not merely a matter of strength, but of timing, adaptation, and vigilance. I pause, heart pounding, and let the enormity of it sink in. I am a guest in this ancient world, walking among creatures that modern humans will never see outside of fossils and illustrations. The Ice Age is not silent. It is a symphony of life, raw and unfiltered, an ecosystem where every sound, every movement carries meaning. For the first time, I feel the true weight of this place. It is beautiful, yes, but it is also terrifying. One misstep, one lapse in awareness, and I could be swept away, consumed by the same laws that have governed life here for tens of thousands of years. Yet despite the danger, I am exhilarated. Every creature, every movement, every sound reinforces the reality that life persists, even in the harshest conditions imaginable. The wind picks up again, scattering snow in dancing swirls. Mammoths trumpet, wolves howl, and the saber-toothed cats vanish once more. I take a deep, steadying breath, letting the cold fill my lungs and the sights fill my mind. I am here in the heart of the Ice Age, and I have never felt more alive. I follow the undulating ridges of the tundra, careful to stay downwind, when I spot movement near a cluster of rocky outcrops. At first I think it's just another animal, but then I see them figures hunched over, moving with purpose and precision. My breath catches. Humans. Or something very close. Neanderthals. Their stocky frames built for the cold, muscles rippling beneath thick furs, faces framed by coarse hair. They notice me almost immediately, though I don't think they understand what they're seeing. I freeze, half hidden behind a boulder, heart hammering. One of them, a woman I think, stands taller than the rest, her hands busy shaping stone with remarkable precision. Chips fly, scattering across the frozen ground. Tools, flint knives, scrapers, and crude spearheads, each one honed for survival. Each one a testament to ingenuity in a world that offers no mercy. I step closer, careful to stay in the shadows, and see more. A small fire, smoke curling upward despite the icy winds. They've built it cleverly, rocks arranged to shield the flame from the gusting breeze. Around it, a few children, small, bundled in furs, play quietly, their faces pale from the cold, but eyes sharp and curious. The adults' attention is split between tending the fire, preparing food, and keeping watch for predators. Every motion is deliberate, practiced over countless generations. A man raises a spear, scanning the distance. His eyes are piercing, alert. I realize that these people, my ancestors, have adapted perfectly to this frozen world. While I struggle to walk across the tundra without shivering violently, they move with the ease of those born into the cold. They know the rhythms of the land, the calls of predators, the best times to hunt. Every sense is heightened, every decision vital. I watch as they prepare for a hunt. A mammoth herd grazes in the distance, unaware of the silent observers. The humans communicate with subtle gestures, whispers, and signs, not language as I know it, but a sophisticated code that orchestrates survival. They split into groups, some approaching the herd cautiously, others remaining behind with the fire and supplies. The tension is palpable. Every step, every motion could mean life or death. Despite the danger, I am mesmerized. I see ingenuity I could barely conceive of. Traps constructed from ice and stone, spears sharpened to deadly precision, strategies formed in response to the behavior of the animals they pursue. There is no room for error. One false move, one poorly judged approach, and the prey could turn on them, or the predators could descend. Survival here is not given. It is earned, over and over again. A sudden gust of wind carries the smell of cooked meat from their small fire. I realize it's not just for warmth. It is sustenance, nourishment hard-won from the frozen landscape. I can almost taste the rich, earthy flavor. Imagine the satisfaction of each bite after a successful hunt. These humans are not merely surviving, they are thriving within the limits imposed by their world. As I continue observing, I notice the subtleties that distinguish them. The way they band together, sharing warmth and resources, protecting each other from both the cold and the unseen dangers of the tundra. Their clothing layered furs, Animal hide stitched together with sinew is practical, intricate, and entirely adapted to the harsh climate. Every garment, every tool, every fire is an act of intelligence and resilience. I feel a strange connection, a sense of watching history in motion. These people are my ancestors, yet also strangers. They move with purpose, living fully in a world I can barely comprehend. I see their strength, their ingenuity, their constant vigilance, and I realize how fragile my own existence would be without the modern comforts I take for granted. Suddenly, a wolf pack appears in the distance, eyes glinting as they move toward the hunting grounds. The humans notice instantly. The spear holders adjust their positions. Children are quickly pulled closer to the fire, and a sense of alert urgency fills the air. The predator and prey dynamic is clear. Life here is constant negotiation between danger and survival. I take a cautious step back, giving them space, but continue watching. Every motion, every glance, every interaction tells a story of adaptation, endurance, and intelligence honed over millennia. I feel humbled, almost unworthy, in the presence of these early humans. They are masters of this frozen realm in ways I could never be. As dusk begins to fall, the figures gather around their fire once more, sharing food, tending the flame, watching over each other. I realize that community is their greatest weapon. A shared resilience that allows them to endure where individuals might fail. I sit quietly, hidden, and watch the glow of fire flicker across fur and stone, reflecting a story as old as humanity itself. For the first time, I understand something fundamental. The Ice Age is not just about survival against the cold and predators. It is about ingenuity, cooperation, and the relentless will to endure. These humans, these ancestors, have mastered a balance I can only begin to comprehend, and their lives, brief and brutal as they must be, are testaments to the extraordinary adaptability of our species. The night creeps closer, shadows stretching long across the tundra. The fire burns brighter, smoke rising against the darkening sky. I take a deep breath, the icy air filling my lungs, and step back from my hidden perch. I have witnessed the lives of the first humans, seen their intelligence and resilience. And though I am alone in this world, I feel a kinship, a thread connecting me to them across 20,000 years. The sun dips low, barely lighting the tundra as the cold tightens its grip. My legs ache, my fingers throb despite layers of gloves, and every breath feels like shards of ice scraping my lungs. I realize with a pang of fear that survival here is not a matter of curiosity or exploration. It is a matter of necessity. I need fire. Without it, the night will consume me, and the frost will claim what little warmth I carry. I dig through my small pack, improvising with whatever I can. Dry grasses trapped under rocks, shards of wood-like debris frozen stiff, and a small flint shard I somehow brought with me. The wind is relentless, whipping the snow into my eyes, threatening to smother even the tiniest spark. I hunch low, shielding my fragile attempt, heart pounding with the possibility of failure. The first strike of flint against stone sends a tiny spark fleeting, fragile, and it vanishes in an instant. I strike again, over and over, my hands raw and stiff, until finally a flicker catches, feeding on the dried grass. A small flame rises, trembling in the wind like a frightened animal. Relief washes through me, momentary and incomplete, because the battle is not over. I must feed the fire, protect it, coax it into life against the cold that seems to reach through everything. While tending the flame, I realize the vulnerability of my situation. Hunger gnaws at my stomach, a constant, insistent reminder that food here is scarce. The tundra offers little, and I am not equipped to hunt like the Neanderthals I watched earlier. My hands shake as I pick at frozen roots, testing them barely enough sustenance to keep my body functioning. Every bite is a compromise, a temporary reprieve, and yet it is essential. Starvation is swift in this environment. The wind grows stronger as night approaches, snatching my breath and forcing me to hunch over the fire. Ice forms on my eyelashes, frost creeping along my scarf and coat. I feel it crawling across my exposed skin, a slow, painful invasion. My thoughts drift to the stories I imagined about the past, how early humans endured nights like this, without modern clothing or insulated shelters. I cannot fathom it fully, yet I understand in the marrow of my bones what it means to be fragile against the elements. Every sound is magnified. The distant howl of wolves sends a shiver through me, echoing across the plains. Ice cracks in the distance, glaciers shifting, the ground itself groaning. Somewhere a mammoth trumpets, a sound that vibrates deep in the frozen soil. I realize that the ice age is alive, and I am painfully aware of my own smallness within it. I attempt to use animal hides left near a rocky outcrop, wrapping myself as best I can to preserve warmth. The furs are stiff, frozen, but they are a shield against the cold. I huddle close to the fire, pressing my hands near it, desperate for every ounce of heat. My body aches from the exertion of moving through snow that alternates between hard crust and treacherous drift. Every step is laborious, every motion calculated to conserve energy. As darkness settles, the harsh reality of this world becomes undeniable. Predators roam close, and I am exposed, an anomaly in a land built for survival by creatures far stronger and more adapted. Wolves may be circling, searching for weakness. The saber-toothed cat, if nearby, could strike without warning. Even mammoths, though largely passive, hold immense power that could crush me in an instant. I am acutely aware that any mistake could be fatal. But in the struggle, there is also learning. I watch the wind patterns, noting depressions and ridges where snow accumulates, or where the cold is less biting. I study the ice for cracks, signs of weakness or safety. I move deliberately, conserving energy while keeping vigilance, discovering slowly how this frozen world demands respect and attention in every action. I realize that survival here is as much mental as physical. Fear is constant, but it sharpens focus. Hunger drives creativity, forcing me to adapt, improvise, and anticipate dangers I cannot always see. My instincts, dulled by centuries of modern comfort, awaken every rustle, every shadow, every change in wind or snow becomes meaningful. Hours stretch into eternity. The fire dwindles, and I feed it with anything combustible I can find: thin twigs, dried grasses, even scraps of frozen moss. Each flicker is precious, each moment alive with tension. I am learning to coexist with the raw forces around me, fragile yet persistent, small but aware. And yet, amidst the struggle, there is wonder. The moon rises over the tundra, casting silver light on the ice and snow. I watch the shadows of distant glaciers and herds of creatures shifting across the plain. Even in this harshest of environments, life persists. Survival is not guaranteed, but it is possible through ingenuity, vigilance, and the relentless will to endure. As I huddle close to the fire, I feel a strange kinship with the early humans I glimpsed earlier. They too faced hunger, cold, and predators with no certainty of success. Yet they survived, thrived, adapted. And now, For a fleeting moment, I am part of that same struggle. A visitor in a land that refuses to forgive weakness, yet rewards awareness, skill, and perseverance. I close my eyes briefly, letting the warmth of the fire seep into my frozen body, knowing that tomorrow I will rise again to face the same brutal, magnificent world. The Ice Age does not yield its lessons easily, but it teaches them unmistakably. Every breath, every movement, every choice matters. Survival is not a given, it is a conquest, and I am learning, step by step, to respect the power of this frozen world. Night falls like a velvet curtain over the tundra, and with it comes a silence so profound it feels almost sacred. The wind has softened into a low, mournful whisper, carrying with it the distant calls of nocturnal creatures, wolves on the prowl, the occasional trumpeting of mammoths settling into frozen hollows. Every sound is magnified in the frigid air, each one a reminder that life persists even in the coldest, darkest corners of the world. I sit close to the fire I managed to kindle, its flames flickering weakly against the night, shadows dancing across my frozen furs. The cold is merciless, but the fire is a fragile sanctuary, a thin line between survival and disaster. My breath rises in pale clouds, curling and dissolving into the crisp night. I pull my knees close, feeling the ache in my muscles, the stiffness in my fingers, and the gnawing hunger in my stomach. Above me, the sky is unlike anything I have ever seen. The absence of modern light pollution transforms the heavens into an endless tapestry of stars, bright, sharp, and innumerable. I can trace constellations with clarity, though I know they were unfamiliar to the humans of this age. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a frozen river of silver, and for a moment, I forget the cold, the hunger, the danger. I am mesmerized by the enormity of it all, a sky that feels both ancient and eternal. The auroras arrive slowly, shimmering at first like faint brushstrokes, then swelling into curtains of green and violet that ripple across the heavens. They dance silently, ethereal and mesmerizing, a celestial performance for which I am the sole audience. The lights cast ghostly glows across the snow, painting the tundra in shifting, spectral hues. I can almost imagine the early humans looking up and seeing spirits, omens, or messages from the gods. To them, this must have been magic incarnate. To me, it is science and wonder intertwined, the Earth's magnetic field alive, visible, and unrelenting in its beauty. I listen closely. The night is not entirely still. Wolves call to each other in distant valleys, their voices stretching across the frozen plains, eerie and haunting. Somewhere nearby, the crunch of snow hints at smaller creatures, Arctic foxes, hares moving cautiously through their nightly routines. Every sound is amplified in the cold, creating a symphony of life that feels both intimate and vast, terrifying and enchanting all at once. I notice the silhouettes of distant glaciers, their edges glowing faintly under the aurora. I imagine the slow, imperceptible shifts of ice over millennia, shaping valleys and ridges long before humans walked this land. The scale of it is humbling. I feel tiny, almost inconsequential, a transient observer in a world that has existed far longer than I can comprehend. Yet I am here, alive, breathing in this ancient night, connected to a reality that no modern city can replicate. A shooting star arcs across the sky, fleeting but brilliant, and I am reminded of the fragile thread that life hangs upon in this world. One storm, one misstep, one predator could end my journey before dawn. Yet here in the darkness, surrounded by the majesty of the Ice Age, I feel an exhilarating sense of being fully alive. I close my eyes briefly, letting the cold bite and the warmth of the fire mix, letting the silence and the light sink in. I am both terrified and terrified by the unpredictability of the world around me, comforted by the resilience of life, both human and animal, that thrives against impossible odds. The stars shift slowly. The aurora dances in new patterns, and I realize that night in the Ice Age is not merely the absence of day. It is a living, breathing entity, a vast canvas where the forces of nature, the echoes of ancient life, and the delicate thread of survival intersect. Every rustle, every distant howl, every shimmer in the sky reminds me that I am part of a continuum, a brief flicker in a world measured in millennia. I huddle closer to the fire, savoring its fragile warmth, feeling the exhaustion in my muscles and the vigilance in my mind. The Ice Age night is long, and I know the dangers have not vanished. They have only shifted into shadow. But for now, I allow myself a moment of awe, letting the stars, the aurora, and the silence imprint themselves on my memory. Here, under this endless sky, I understand a truth that transcends time. Life endures, adaptation prevails, and even in the harshest, coldest environments, beauty and wonder persist. The Ice Age is not only a trial, it is a revelation, a world of extremes, where survival and spectacle coexist in perfect, terrifying harmony. I rise with the first pale light of dawn, my breath still curling in the frozen air, and I take a long, deliberate look at the world around me. From my vantage point on a small rise, I can see the vast sweep of glaciers stretching across the horizon, rivers of ice that have carved valleys and shaped mountains over tens of thousands of years. The enormity of it is almost incomprehensible, but as I observe, I start to understand that this frozen wilderness is not random. It is a product of cosmic rhythm, of forces far beyond human control. The Ice Age did not arrive suddenly. It was born of the Milankovitch cycle's subtle variations in the Earth's tilt, wobble, and orbit around the Sun. These slow, predictable changes affected how sunlight struck the planet, triggering periods of cooling that eventually froze entire continents. The glaciers I see are colossal reminders of that process, advancing and retreating over millennia, reshaping coastlines and creating land bridges that connected continents we now see as separate. I imagine the world as it must have been. Lower sea levels exposing vast stretches of land, enabling migration between Asia and North America, or connecting Britain to mainland Europe. The rivers and plains beneath the ice were lifelines for animals and humans alike, corridors of movement in a frozen world. Standing here, I can almost trace the paths that mammoths, bison, and early humans would have taken, each journey dictated by survival and instinct. The landscape is divided sharply between ice-covered expanses and ice-free refuges. Where glaciers dominate, the terrain is harsh and unyielding, with little to support life. But in pockets where the ice never fully reached, tundra grasslands and scattered forests offered sustenance to both animals and humans. These refuges were lifeboats in a frozen sea, holding the seeds of survival, adaptation, and evolution. I think of the creatures I've seen: mammoths trudging across the plains, saber-toothed cats stalking their prey, Neanderthals huddled around fires, and realized that every species was shaped by these extreme conditions. Life here was not random. It was a product of adaptation, a delicate balance between strength, intelligence, and endurance. Yet even the most well-adapted species were not immune to the pressures of the Ice Age. Extinction loomed, a quiet shadow over every step. Mastodons, giant ground sloths, and countless other megafauna would vanish by the end of the last glacial period, victims of climate shifts, human hunting, and environmental changes. I trace my fingers across the frozen ground, imagining the glaciers slowly grinding mountains into valleys, sculpting the world into shapes we now take for granted. Fjords, cliffs, moraines, all born from ice, all reminders of a force so immense that it reshaped continents. Time here is tangible, measured in frozen layers, etched in rock, carved into landscapes that outlast lifetimes. The sun rises higher, though it offers little warmth. I feel the cold seep through my layers, but it is tempered by understanding. I am witnessing more than survival. I am seeing the intersection of geology, biology, and astronomy. The Ice Age is not merely a backdrop for life. It is the framework, the arena in which evolution and survival unfold. And yet, I am struck by the fragility of it all. The same forces that have created and sustained this world also carry the power to erase it. Ice melts, species vanish, coastlines change. The end of the Ice Age is inevitable, and with it, the world will be reshaped again. But the resilience of life of humans, animals, and plants will persist. Adaptation, ingenuity, and cooperation will allow some to endure, leaving traces for the future to discover. I take a deep breath, the icy air filling my lungs, and feel a profound connection to both the past and the present. This world, so different from my own, teaches lessons that transcend time. The power of nature, the impermanence of even the largest forces, and the relentless drive of life to survive. I am a visitor here, yet I am part of the continuum, a witness to the ancient rhythms that have shaped Earth for millennia. From this vantage, I can see the entire story of the Ice Age unfolding in miniature. Glaciers carving the land, herds migrating across the tundra, predators and prey locked in a timeless dance, and humans struggling, adapting, enduring. It is a world of extremes, of beauty and terror, of survival and extinction, and it humbles me in ways the modern world never could. The Ice Age is over now, at least for me, but its lessons remain. Every valley carved by ice, every species lost, every human who endured all are reminders that life is fragile, powerful, and unyielding. And as I prepare to leave this frozen world behind, I know I will carry its lessons into my own time, shaped forever by the harsh, magnificent reality of survival in the Ice Age. The world around me shimmers and fractures again, as if time itself has grown thin. One moment I am amid glaciers, frozen plains, and the haunting calls of Ice Age creatures. The next, I stumble forward into a landscape that feels almost alien in its warmth and noise. The sharp, biting cold is gone, replaced by air that flows easily into my lungs. The silence has been replaced by hums, murmurs, and distant mechanical sounds. Skyscrapers tower over streets paved with asphalt. Cars rush past in streams of color and light, and advertisements blink with messages I cannot immediately comprehend. The comfort of warmth is almost disorienting, the steady hum of electricity a stark contrast to the howling wind and crackling ice I left behind. My coat, heavy with frozen snow just moments ago, now feels out of place against the sunlit streets. I pause, breathing deeply, and realize how fragile human life once was, how dependent on fire, shelter, food, and cooperation early humans were. The modern world shields us from danger, hides the uncertainty of survival, and offers conveniences unimaginable to those who walk these frozen plains. Yet, for all its comfort, I feel a pang of longing for the raw, unfiltered reality I have just experienced. The Ice Age taught me something fundamental. Survival is not guaranteed, and resilience is not abstract. It is lived. Every movement, Every decision, every ounce of effort mattered in that frozen world. Humans endured not because they were invincible, but because they adapted, cooperated, and pressed on in the face of impossible odds. I see that same thread running through history, connecting those ancestors to the lives we lead today. I look around at the modern city bustling, warm, insulated, and yet I carry within me a memory of endless tundra, mammoths trudging across plains, wolves howling under auroras, and humans huddled around tiny fires, fragile yet unyielding. The lessons of endurance, ingenuity, and awe remain vivid. Life may be easier now, but the Ice Age reminds me that strength and survival are never given. They are forged, moment by moment, breath by breath. The contrast is staggering. Where once I feared for each heartbeat, now I cross streets without hesitation. Where once the aurora shimmered above pristine wilderness, now neon signs flicker across the night sky. Yet even amidst the comforts of modernity, the echoes of the Ice Age linger, a reminder that nature is immense, indifferent, and eternal, and that humanity's ability to endure is its most remarkable trait. I take a deep breath, savoring the warmth, the smell of pavement, the faint hum of distant engines, and yet my mind drifts back to frozen plains, to the mammoths, the saber-toothed cats, the resilient humans who lived and thrived in an unforgiving world. I carry them with me, a story etched into memory, a bridge across time. And as I step forward into the city streets, I understand that the Ice Age is more than history. It is a testament to survival, to adaptation, to resilience, and to the enduring power of life itself. The world has changed. The glaciers have melted, and humans have built civilizations beyond imagination. Yet, the lessons remain clear. Nature commands respect. Survival demands vigilance. And the capacity to endure is what has allowed humanity to flourish. For a fleeting, unforgettable moment, I had walked among giants, faced the raw extremes of existence, and witnessed the delicate balance that sustains life. The Ice Age is gone, but its teachings are eternal, carved into the landscapes it shaped, into the species it challenged, and into the very essence of what it means to survive. I glance up at the city skyline, the sun glinting off glass and steel, and smile faintly. The modern world is magnificent, but I will always carry the cold, the silence, and the awe of the Ice Age within me. And perhaps, in moments of challenge, I will remember that resilience is not just survival. It is the triumph of life against all odds.